good afternoon to in-house counsel and in-house legal professionals from all across North America and the world. Welcome to In-House Connect. My name is Shai Mahani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of In-House Connect, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. Thank you for spending Halloween with us, Diwali with us. Thank you for spending your breakfast time or your lunchtime with us. And special thanks to our wonderful sponsor today, Layer Up, and our fantastic presenter, Arnav Bhatla, who is going to show us practical AI agent use cases for improving processes, reducing workloads, and navigating regulatory changes with Layer Up. This is our 95th webinar of the year, and I'm wondering, are you here for the first time, or have you tuned into an IHC webinar before? Our presenter today is Arnav Bhatla. He is the founder and CEO of Layer Up. He had previously built a crypto accounting and bill pay software from the ground up that serves many Web3 companies. He's applying his expertise from the financial services industry and AI to create Layer Up's generative AI platform. After more than a decade of building businesses and AI products, he's bringing LLMs to compliance, risk, and legal leaders. Wonderful to have you on with us today, Arnav. Welcome to In-House Connect.
Amazing. Thanks for that introduction, Shai. You just nailed it there. But I am very excited to chat with everyone. Before we even jump in, please feel free to engage. Please feel free to ask any questions. Please feel free to throw in anything in the chat. And my colleague Jamshid is here as well. He will be answering your questions. He'll be responding to any questions as they pop up. But I'd really, in today's Halloween, just want everyone to imagine what the future is going to look like, especially with what's happening right now. We are obviously very excited at Layer Up to participate in that future and make sure we chat through that together as a community as well. We have plenty of slides to go through, but instead of going through just a slide deck, what I want all of us to also do is dig in deeper in practical use cases, which we will. But I will orient this entire conversation going from the why to the what. Going from why is AI agents going to play a huge role in the future of compliance, risk, and audit? And of course, how does the what look like? What are the use cases? How do you apply that right now? What are the industries? If I'm in financial services, how that impacts me. If I'm in healthcare, how that impacts me. Those are a few things that we will 100% explore, and make sure this is interactive. Please feel free to ask any questions. Amazing. Quick brief on today's agenda as we are moving forward as well. We'll, again, firstly talk about the why, but majorly we will spend some time on the third point, which is what are the practical use cases. We'll go back and forth and walk through, hey, this is how we are seeing agents being used with legal compliance risk audit teams in these industries, and how you can think about that as well for your use cases. If anything, I want all of us to just think about these use cases and reimagine what your work can look like, what your future of work will look like as you are doing any form of related tasks as well internally. It doesn't have to be exactly these use cases, but these will give you a proper framework to think about what the future of work will look like, because it will cohesively change. Shai already gave a quick background on myself, so I'll just quickly skim through this. But I have personally been involved in building and keeping up with a lot of SEC regulations in the crypto industry, which, as we all know, is very rapidly changing, very hard to keep up with. And of course, dissecting that and its impact on the business is very tricky. And one of the things I was involved in was creating the accounting and bill pay software for Web3 companies, which led us to looking into what are the challenges financial services institutions face as they grow more and more complex in size, in scale, in the amount of assets or the type of assets that they have on their balance sheet. What are the compliance issues that these financial institutions as a result might face as well? I wanted to just open up this conversation by just talking about what AI agents actually mean. I'd love to just kick off a poll as well. Shai, would you be able to send across a poll and see how many people have explored agents in compliance, audit, and risk, or maybe in their role in general? Let's see.
Hey Arnav, so again, the question is, have you explored the use of AI agents in compliance, audit, and risk? The options are yes, no, a little bit, but not much. I don't
Yeah.
know much about AI agents in general. It's interesting. I think I know of one other, like an AI tool that's geared towards in-house counsel, and that's GCAI. I'm sure, I wonder,
Uh-huh.
my friends in the chat, if they are familiar with that. Cecilia is a big fan, big following, but I've never heard of an AI tool for regulatory compliance like this one. So it's interesting.
Yes.
Yep, I see Toby J. Yeah, a few people have tried GCAI, which is wonderful. That's great. Looking at the poll, yeah, Martin also using it is awesome. That's great. Looks like we have about 14% have explored the use of AI agents and compliance, audit, and risk, and that's really interesting. I'm curious what the other options are. 42% have
Yeah.
not. 29% a little bit, but not much, and then 16% are just not familiar with AI agents in general. So great participation, and thank you everybody for participating in our poll and in the chat.
Thank you. No, it looks like most of the folks haven't explored AI agents yet, which is perfect because we will walk through exact use cases and dig in deeper in practical applications that we are seeing. But I just want all of us to imagine that scene from Fantasia in which you are able to get the brooms to do what they're supposed to do while you're always in the loop, while you're always approve their work. If anything, there's one thing and one takeaway that I want all of us to take from this session. It's our work will go from doing to approving. Even we, on a day-to-day basis, the way we write code, the way we sell stuff, the way that we talk to people, our work has gone from doing to approving. And that is what majority of the work will look like, specifically in cases like regulatory compliance, in general auditing, in general risk, because there's a lot of reading, writing involved. And if models can do that at a 10x, 100x faster rate than humans can, your work will go from doing to approving. Because someone, aka the model, can do this at a 100x or a 500x faster rate than you, with maybe more precision as well. All it requires is the approval. So you can think of agents as having analysts by your side, and just remind yourself with the scene from Fantasia where you have all these brooms working for you and you are always in the loop telling the brooms what to do and you're approving that work. Quick brief before we even jump into the use cases, and talk about just why should you even care? Why should you care about agents? Partly because of the fact that the future of work, again, like I mentioned, will go from doing to approving. But just to give you some historical examples as well, one of the things that is very obvious for us to just reference to during the boom of the internet, during the boom of the cloud, was the shift from DVD to streaming. And again, these large-scale shifts only happen every single decade, and agents, in my opinion, is much, much bigger than what large language models just producing the next token brought. Agents will truly take the work that you would have done otherwise and turn that work into actual tasks being performed automatically. So all you have to do is just approve those tasks while still being in the loop. And these large-scale shifts do not happen that often, but when they do happen, it dramatically changes the way we work. Another example is I wasn't born when VisiCalc was introduced, but if anyone in the audience was, you might have remembered how VisiCalc was the first moment in the history of software where everything went from manual accounting to software-based spreadsheet workflows. And that was a huge boom. I personally have been following the history of VisiCalc very deeply, especially because I was involved in creating accounting software for Web3 companies, for crypto transactions, for companies that had blockchain transactions across multiple blockchains on their balance sheet and auditing them, making sure that they have proper accounting. And I can tell you that the way that we work and do accounting, or we do audit, or we do compliance is about to completely change merely because of what AI agents will be bringing on. And of course, the third example is the Kodak example that we all know, that when we did go from this manual photography to digital era, there was a huge boom of iPhones that led to just less number of cameras being sold. And my suggestion is just don't follow the footsteps of Kodak. follow the footsteps of iPhone, follow the footsteps of Instagram, and make sure that you are ready for the future of work. And that would look like taking from doing tasks to approving tasks. That is what the future of work will look like, doing to approving. Let's just quickly walk through a couple of examples now, and I'm so excited to jump into these examples. And what we will do in these use cases is walk through practical, I'll give you a quick demo of how LaRap is being used, but walk through practical examples of how we saw individual teams and individual humans use agents in their day-to-day work. At a high level, again, like I mentioned, your work, whether it's internal audits, whether it's testing controls, whether you are just handling regulatory change management, you're doing horizon scanning. Maybe you are in a financial services, you're a financial institution, you are in the financial services industry, maybe you are an investment management firm, maybe you are at a Web3 company. Applying the impact of the change in regulations, updating your policies, and then figuring out the impact on the procedures based on the changes in policies, and then figuring out the impact of your controls and updating those is a very manual. One of the teams we worked with was actually hiring a lot of headcount and spending, I think, close to weeks or months just doing this process again and again because they were in a very regulated and highly dynamic industry. Crypto is a very good example of it. But when it comes to just in general change management, not just internal audits, but also just in general change management, the work will go from doing to approving. There is an agent that you can deploy that will consistently read through every single regulation. It will read through every single change in the regulation. It will tell you what the impact of that regulation was on your business, on your policies, on your procedures, and then it will dissect the actual next step for you. All you have to do is approve or deny. That is use case number one. Your internal audits, your control testing, the way you do GRC, run GRC in general, internally, is about to go from manual workflow-based process to approving that process, and you just having an abstraction layer, and that abstraction layer being AI agents. AI agents will be an abstraction layer on top of the work that you were doing and the products that you were using like GRC tools. There'll be AI agents that live on top of that. So all you have to do is just approve the work that AI agents are performing when it comes to doing any form of control testing. You will still tell the AI agent what to do. You will still tell the AI agent to go through and handle change management. You will still tell the AI agent that don't do this unless I tell you. You will still be in the loop. But AI agents will be the abstraction layer on top of all the work that is being performed today, being done manually. So your work goes from doing to approving. That is this one single message that I want everyone to take away. The work is going from doing to approving. The second example, I think this applies more to financial services institutions, especially if you're moving money, if you are in the payments industry, if you are onboarding customers, running through KYCs, running through AML, ops, you are doing EDD for customers, enhanced due diligence on customers, you're making sure you're going through alerts. This applies extensively to you because if you think about onboarding customers in for any financial product, any fintech product, you have to do due diligence on that customer. What that due diligence looks like, that due diligence involves reading, writing, and creating a summary and a report on that customer and dissecting whether or not this customer is a high-risk customer or whether this customer is a low-risk customer or whether this customer is okay and we can onboard them. All that task, you can imagine a model being performing this task for you and keeping you in the loop while you approve or deny. Again, nothing is happening without you being in the loop, but the model does the work so you can approve the work. It's like having an analyst that is working 24/7 in the background, doing the task for you, doing document scanning, doing efficient document analysis in seconds, not weeks or months, so you can approve or deny. That's it. It's very simple. And again, an example might be doing a KYC checking. An example might be doing EDD on a customer. An example might be responding to AML alerts, which is, again, a lot of teams we chat with hire a team of analysts to do that work. They have a team of analysts to just perform that work when they only needed one analyst that can be in the loop while AI agents can do that work for them. can go through all those alerts, can tell you that this alert was a false positive, and this alert for AML was actually a positive. It is something that we should look into. Or if you'd like to do EDD and generate documents, you can use a model to do that as well. So it's very magical. It does work in the background for you, again, while keeping you in the loop, telling you whether you should approve or deny. Finally, when it comes to just creating risk assessments that is tied towards just internal control testing, audits, you don't have to manage Excel sheets or go through email trails. You don't have to do all that manual work. Any document-based process, any process that requires you to do any form of reading, writing, can be done through agents, all the while keeping you in the loop. So you can go from doing to approving. What I will do is quickly share a demo on how we are seeing practical use cases of people transforming their work from doing to approving, of compliance, audit, and risk teams going through this process seamlessly using agents. Amazing. What I'll give you is a quick example of how we saw one of the teams that we're working with in financial services industry. It's an investment management firm. They had a team manually going through and handling horizon scanning, change management. They had a team of analysts that used to read through regulations and regulatory changes and apply those changes back to the policies that were affected within their institution, within their company. And they would further go in, test the procedures that were affected as a result of those changes in policies, and then do control testing. This whole process of reading regulations, seeing what policies were impacted, seeing what procedures were impacted, seeing what controls were impacted, and approving that whole process used to take one of the teams that we are working with weeks. They had to hire a lot of headcount. They had to dedicate their existing resources onto this change management process. Using agents, that team converted this weeks and month-long process into minutes and days. As an example, what agent does is what you're seeing right now with LairUp is LairUp has a lot of agents running in the background, one of which is the agent that manages all the regulatory changes. It is running in the background, reading all the regulations and all the websites that you are keeping up with. It's reading all the regulations of those websites, mapping out to your existing policies, saying, hey, these are the changes and the impact score for that specific policy. It will tell you what the affected policies, procedures, and controls were. So you can always be in the loop, but it abstracts away the work that an analyst was doing manually before of reading the regulation, telling you a summary of why a policy needs to get updated because of a change in a regulation, telling you what was the suggested change, keeping you in the loop, but not approving the actual change. It will ask you to approve the change. So your work has gone from doing. This is what it means to have an agent that is running 24/7. So your work can go from doing to approving. That is the single message that, again, you can apply to every single type of work that you are doing, because future work will look like going from doing to approving. As an example, like I mentioned, one of the teams that we were working with is using this agent that automatically scans the regulations that impact this company across all the websites that they're tracking, and then applying those changes onto existing policies, telling them what the older version was, what the suggested change was, so you can edit those changes as well. It will highlight the actual passage and the language within the policy. You can approve or deny. It will highlight the affected procedures, so you can approve or deny. It will highlight the affected controls as well, so you can approve or deny. But you don't have to do that work anymore. You are still in the loop though. You are always in the loop. But now agents are running in the background, reading regulations, applying those changes, asking you to approve, and then applying those changes further to procedures and controls and so on and so forth, but is always taking you from doing to approving. And you're always in the loop. This is one of the agents that we had, and one of the examples that I wanted to walk you through. There are plenty of other agents, like again, as I mentioned, especially for financial services, there's things like EDD, enhanced due diligence, where you have to go in and do a due diligence on a specific customer. That requires an analyst to go on a couple of websites, go in, dig in deeper within the documents for a customer, and then summarize that and write a lot of text and maybe take a couple of hours doing so. And you can multiply that across, say, thousands of customers. That takes literally a team of analysts to do. Using agent, you can make that weeks-long process that you would do into seconds-long process that you would approve. So you can go from doing to approving. I will be pausing here and opening up the stage for any questions. But before I do, I just wanted to, again, show these super specific use cases, walk through these use cases, but I do not want to just throw in and spill in a lot of information just so everyone has some room to think about this and ask any questions. But as just a follow-up step and where you should start about just thinking about using agents at your day-to-day work, whether you are in financial services or some other regulated industry and you are interested in applying agents for compliance, risk, and audit workflows, I would just recommend, firstly, removing the mindset that AI can't solve your problems and removing the mindset that you should not talk to AI companies. I see that quite often, but I'd love for everyone to take away one thing from this session. It's this, that your work is about to go from doing to approving. That is what the future of agents will look like. We are in a very steep curve. I'm in the Bay Area, and I can tell everyone that the curve that we are on right now is very steep in terms of capability, in terms of just what is about to happen in the world. And one of the most important pieces that we all can do is talk to AI companies and talk to AI startups and think about what are the use cases and imagine our day-to-day work. And of course, most importantly, when it comes to looking into the application of AI agents in your work, I would just also recommend listing down what the blockers are, listing down before making that another hire, another recruit for an analyst role or an associate role, just thinking about, hey, can I use maybe agents to increase productivity of our existing team? And maybe I can use agents for the tasks that we are looking to hire for. Or maybe we don't, but there are a subset of tasks that we actually can use agents for. And if I don't know the answer to that, let me list down what tasks that I am facing challenges with, and let me go talk to AI companies. So I recommend doing that. I recommend chatting with a lot of AI companies. I will pause here and open up the stage to any questions.
There's a bunch of questions in the chat, and folks, keep it coming. Jamshid has been doing a great job of answering questions, but let me recap a few of them. Does the platform include PCI, DSS, and SOC 2 regulations so to stay on top of those? Can it do any regulation?
Yes, this is covered during implementation. So if someone has to keep up with certain, we do encounter a lot of companies in different jurisdictions that have very specific and very edge case scenarios. So this is covered during implementation. We can cover up edge cases.
Got it. Let's cite precisely where the changes are coming from. And the commenter, Garth, is concerned about hallucinations. We're all concerned about hallucinations.
Yes, no, I am so glad that this was brought up. So thanks for asking this question. One of the most important pieces that we have taken into account is whenever you're working with agents, you always need two things. The first thing is the sources. The second thing is what we call chain of thought. And that is basically an explanation that agent gives you that, hey, this is why I came up with this answer. This is why I'm telling you what this has to be done. And this is the sources that I used to come up with that answer. Again, think of this as an analyst. You're working with an analyst. It will ask you to approve, ask you to not approve, give you the summary of why it did what it did, and it will tell you the sources it got the answer from. So again, it's just having an analyst. You're always in the loop. You don't like the answer, you can edit it. You like the answer, you can rerun it. So it's very flexible.
That analysis is provided, like the source is provided and the analysis is provided. Okay. Is there any concern about the agent inaccurately summarizing new regulations? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, great question. I think this is very much related to the hallucination piece, and I answered this already, where there are sources. And this is also the reason why, if that wasn't a concern, we would frankly have autonomous agents, and we would frankly not have anyone in the loop. If that wasn't the concern and agents work perfectly, then what is the issue? Well, why do we need human in the loop in the first place? So the reason we are addressing this hallucination challenge is the way that we are addressing this hallucination challenge is by having everyone in the loop, providing the sources, providing the actual place where it's coming from. And it's not quote unquote hallucination. I think it's very much exaggerated at this point, is the fact that nobody, not even a model, not even an analyst, not even a human being, can be 100% accurately tell you that I'm going to be right, but you are always in the loop and you can make an informed decision based off that.
It's interesting. Nancy says if your bot had been around to highlight changes in privacy and infosec cyber regulations during GDPR, I would have saved her a ton of time over the years working for multinational companies. Kendra asks, what are your ideas for creating an AI governance program?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I would think that this is a longer topic to actually discuss, but having proper guardrails, Jamsheed and I actually were involved. Jamsheed, my colleague, he's answering the questions in the chat as well. We were involved in building out from scratch one of the first AI security products and talking about how guardrails can be applied to things like prompt injection, things like other security concerns that are third-party security concerns, but we have thought through a lot about governance. I would think working with companies that have proper answer to the fact that what are the guardrails and are those guardrails extended to the users of the platform is very critical. In terms of just the governance protocol, I specifically would argue that is a much longer discussion that would probably be suitable for a later time.
We have a great question from Liying Zhao. What happens when a regulation is challenged in court, or maybe there's something it changes? We saw that recently with the FTC non-compete. We thought it was going one way, it went another way. How does the tool stay on top of that?
Yes, no, this is a phenomenal question. One of the things that is very magical about AI agents is the fact that they're constantly scraping and running in the background. Again, the analogy that I love to give is just the analogy of having an analyst by yourself that is constantly monitoring all the changes and summarizing those changes for you and telling you this is the impact of that change. This is what you can do based off that change. Would you like to do that, or would you not like to do that? So it's running in the background consistently and telling you if there's any change, which is why I also gave the example of Web3 companies, because this is happening very commonly for a lot of crypto companies that we interact with.
Gotcha. And I think we only have a few more questions left. So folks, if you have questions, please put it in the chat. What is the percentage of accuracy or margin of error in the AI agent? Do you have like stats to share?
Yes, we have benchmarks on this, and we can share this after the call as well. We have proper benchmarks, blog posts on this as well. But it totally depends on task to task, as you can imagine. And it totally depends on what type of use case it is. And I would say, again, one of the ways that I'd like everyone to just think about this is if you have access to the sources, if you have access to a summary of what the chain of thought was, why it gave you the answer it gave you, it is already 10x better than you doing it manually. And you can go to sources and you can click on sources and see, hey, maybe this was right, maybe this was wrong, but it is already better, 10x better than you doing this manually.
Jennifer, my friend Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer. She has a follow-up question on this, and it's a great one. Is the way you describe providing a chain of thought explanation regarding regulations done similarly with false positives in the context of AML, KYC regulations and research? I have a tiny bit of experience in AML and KYC, right? Know your customer, and for those who are not familiar, banks, all the banks need to know who these people are, where their money's coming from, is it clean or whatever. And so that's an interesting question. How does this, it's one thing with the regulations, right? Publicly available sources. How does it handle vetting people? I think it does. It can vet people, it can go through and analyze. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. In fact, this is such a good question. because I will walk you through a use case. If you have a customer and you have their information, their document, where they're coming from, and everything in between, if you think from first principles, what are you doing if there was a human in the background doing this task? You are reading every single piece about that customer. You are going and researching everything about that customer. And you are also providing the summary of a draft of whether or not this is a high risk, low risk, person. And one of the things that large language models are incredibly good at is ingesting all this data from all the disparate sources, maybe a source that you might have overlooked if you were doing it manually, going through all these disparate sources and providing you a much comprehensive summary. And yes, giving you also a chain of thought. And yes, also giving you the sources that it's getting the data from. So in fact, I would argue one of the things that we are seeing with folks that we are working with is getting access to even more extensive AML, KYC agents and summaries, and more extensive output that they have seen before, because now you can ingest all this information from so many different disparate sources.
Great question. I have a follow-up on that. Let's say you're a financial institution, you have an AML, KYC policy, you have the sources that you look up people with. Does LayerUp have an API? Let's say we use LexisNexis for looking up certain things and another database. Like, how do you tap into those sources?
Great question. In fact, another use case that we were just chatting with was a company had built a lot of internal tools using another tool called Retool. They had their own existing tool that they were gathering information from. And what you're saying, Shai, is basically there's information sitting in different disparate systems. How does LayerUp work with those systems to provide you a proper, accurate summary? Basically what you're talking about is integrations. So we do integrate with all these different systems. And as soon as you click on that one customer, you suddenly get this one summary that actually was summarized through all these separate integrations and systems that the tool had integrated with. And that is very, very seamless because, yes, you can imagine if it's very easy as an analyst to be overwhelmed by the different disparate system for thousands of customers, given the size and the scale, for hundreds of thousands or maybe tens of customers that you're summarizing information from. But LLMs don't sleep, so they can actually gather together that information.
Very cool. I think we have just a few more questions. Jamsheet's doing a great job in the chat, but one question I want to repeat. Does the tool screen only existing policies? Does it recommend new policies, processes, or even sections to existing ones if it finds gaps after its analysis of legal requirements? That's a great question. Thanks again, Liying Zhao, for your question.
No, thanks for that question. That is a phenomenal question. Yes, agents do run in the background and do horizon scanning. It doesn't recommend you completely new policy or process. When it comes to finding gaps, yes. But when it comes to building completely new policies, it will have to at least integrate with your system and at least work across and make sure how your business actually works, but it does not recommend new policies. That is something that you can draft using LayerUp's platform, and you can find gaps in, but you can't get automatic suggestions on, hey, maybe this is some new type of policy that you should look into. That does not happen.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Really interesting. So I think we're out of questions. So that's awesome. Spence wants a demo. So that's great to see. I just want to summarize one of the discussions that were going on in the chat about, has anyone's company been restrictive around the use of AI for in-house counsel? So really interesting. Some people have an AI governance committee and a subcommittee to vet such use cases. There's questionnaires involved. Really interesting stuff. Martin says, I think you have to think of AI as a really efficient intern. They'll do great work. Like an intern, it still needs to be supervised. I totally agree. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do 100% agree with this. This is why I think working with platforms and companies and teams that understand the fact that you need a chain of thought, a reasoning behind why an answer came, list of sources that were used to provide that answer, and the reasoning. Working with a team that understands these two things, in my opinion, is very critical. And that has been the baseline upon which everything has been working.
Got it. Two more questions came in, but they're very similar and they involve the same topic, which is privacy. Does an entity's confidential and customer info stay in their own gated environment, or is it mixed? How do you ensure the privacy of the data uploaded?
Very common question. And what you can expect from Azure is what you can expect from us, because we do use Azure and we host all our models in Azure as well. That means same privacy, same control. Every single AI product that every single company is interacting with, I would argue most of them would be happy if AI companies would use Azure because they have the best-in-class security in place. So that's what we do. What you expect with Azure is what you can expect with us.
Awesome.
That's Microsoft.
Yeah, that's great. Last question, and folks, if you have other questions, like this is the time, but potential last question, can you talk about pricing? How does pricing work? Is it per seat? Is it per agent? Is it per query? What does that look like?
One of the things that I personally am very biased towards is infinite seats, infinite queries. You should not be constrained on the number of queries you can ask, even though that does cost the platform. You should not be constrained on the number of users. We do charge based off agents and we do charge based off a platform fee. What does that mean? That means, again, just like we pitch, we do have an analyst running in the background for you 24/7. Having one platform fee for one type of analyst is how we charge. We don't charge based on per seat. We have modules. You want a platform fee plus this type of analyst, this type of agent, or this type of task, great. That agent plus the platform fee is the final charge. It'll be flat. There's no queries. There's no number of users. You can have 20 users. You can have 200 users. That doesn't matter.
Awesome. Great. This is super interesting, super informative. Thank you so much. We're gonna wrap up here. Folks, if you want to get more information, please let us know. We'll connect you with Arnav. Before we sign off, do you have any closing remarks?
No, this was great. Thanks again for everyone for joining on Halloween. Again, in this Halloween, I think this was right on point, and chatting about agents in the future of work is, of course, requires a bit of an imagination. And I think, if anything, imagination is the limit, given the steep curve that we are on today. Yeah, I'm excited to chat and explore. If someone wants to ping me, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to chat. Ping me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to just discuss other use cases we haven't even touched upon and be the sounding board. I really want us to uplift the community and make sure that all of us are adopting agents, because I think that's one of the concerns that I have is the world would not adopt agents fast enough. And a lot of folks will be left behind. And I think it's just uplifting everyone alongside this future of work is very critical. So I'm happy to be a sounding board.
Awesome. Really cool stuff. Congrats on all your success. And thank you again. Thanks again for a wonderful program. We're going to wrap up here. I hope everybody has a wonderful Halloween. Thanks again, Layer Up, Arnav, and Jamsheed for a wonderful program. And have a wonderful Thursday and a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.